My name is William Mandel. I live at 233 Lake Drive, Berkeley. By occupation, I am a translator of scientific material, a lecturer, a leader of travel tours, an author, radio and television commentator, and have been a newspaperman at various times until committees such as this made it difficult for me to continue in some of these fields.
Say, not facetiously, but in earnest appraisal, you're certainly engaged in a number of activities here. You're appearing today in response to a subpoena which is heard upon you by this committee?
I do.
And you're represented by counsel?
I am.
Counsel?
To the degree that a counsel not able to speak for me can represent me.
Could you kindly identify yourself, please, counsel?
Bertram Edison, Oakland, California.
By the way, if the television men want some music, put those lights on.
I think he was suggesting first.
They can put them on if they want something to show their audiences. Fine. You might miss something.
I understand you want the lights on?
I want the lights on, precisely. I want the fullest glare of publicity in this committee's activity.
Where and when were you born, please, sir?
I was born in New York City on June 4th, 1917.
Give us a word about your education.
Yes, sir. I was educated in the public schools, junior high schools, and high schools in New York City. I had one semester in biochemistry at the age of 14 at the University of Moscow, USSR. I specify my age so no nonsense about the Lenin School can be asked of me. I then had 1 year at City College in New York. I was expelled for opposition to military training in 1933 at age 16. In 1947, the Hoover Institute at Stanford University engaged me as a fellow at postdoctoral stipend on the basis of 2 books I had written for the specific purpose of compiling an encyclopedia of the USSR. This is my education.
Are you now, or have you ever been, a member of the Communist Party?
Sir, I am 42 years of age and have never had to face a jury as defendant or grand jury as witness in my life. My research and writing have been so public that 2 committees similar to this one, the Senate Internal Security Subcommittee and the McCarthy Committee, subpoenaed me as far back as 8 and 7 years ago, respectively, for having written a book titled The Soviet Far East and Central Asia. No indictment resulted from those hearings either, or from my continued public speaking or writing since that date. Clearly, therefore, I have committed no crime under any of the laws of this country and am not engaged in subversion. Consequently, I refuse to testify on the grounds that as a radio and TV public affairs broadcaster active in those capacities today, the subpoena issued to me interferes with the rights of my stations to schedule informational programs on their merits, and is thus a direct violation of the First Amendment guarantee of freedom of speech and of the people's right to hear. Further, as a scholar with a 20-year record of research in public writing and lecturing in my chosen field, the study of the Soviet Union, a field admitted by all to be one in which this country is in vital need of knowledge, I refuse to testify on the grounds that the subpoena is a violation of freedom of inquiry, which can only be expressed with the free speech and free press guaranteed in the First Amendment to the academic community as to all others. Lastly, I certainly shall not answer questions representing allegations against me made by persons not present and not identified, whom I cannot confront and whom my lawyer cannot cross-examine as to their truthfulness. To rest my case solely on the First Amendment would, as 36 cases now in the courts show, condemn me to years of court action at enormous cost, It had cost me my home and impoverished my family for a very long time to come, which of course is what this committee desires. Therefore, I also refuse to testify under my right not to be a witness against myself, a right originated to protect the innocent. The guilty can be convicted by the testimony of others if there is any real evidence to present.
Do you honestly apprehend, sir, that if you told this committee truthfully while you're under oath whether or not you are now this instant or ever have been a member of the Communist Party, you would be supplying information which might be used against you in a criminal proceeding?
Honorable beaters of children and sadists uniformed and in plain clothes, distinguished Dixiecrat wearing the clothing of a gentleman, eminent Republican who opposes an accommodation with the one country with which we must live at peace in order for us all and our children to survive. My boy of 15 left this room a few minutes ago in sound health and not jailed, solely because I asked him to be in here to learn something about the procedures of the United States government and one of its committees. Had he been outside, where the son of a friend of mine had his head split by these goons operating under your orders, my boy today might have paid the penalty of permanent injury or a police record for desiring to come here and hear how this committee operates. If you think that I am going to cooperate with this collection of Judases, of men who sit there in violation of the United States Constitution, if you think I will cooperate with you in any way, you are insane.
Now, sir, were you a lecturer? Were you a lecturer in the California Labor School in San Francisco in 1947?
Yes, sir, I was. And I lectured on Shostakovich's oratorio, Song of the Forest. What do you know about that?
And were you at that time a member of the Communist Party? And did
Yes.
you lecture as a communist?
As I told you before, sir, if there are laws on the books of this country under which any of the activities in which I have engaged publicly and openly, and I would be delighted to bring you a list of books literally this long, which either I have written or which have been cited as authority in books written years later in other countries, or journals to which I have contributed. If any of this public record, almost all of it scholarly, by anybody's definition, is to be regarded or were regarded by anyone as criminal activity, there are laws on the books under which the proper authorities of the United States could have taken or could now take action against me. I have never disappeared from my home. I have been available at all times. This question has no purpose other than to harass me. When I was asked this question last in 1943 by the late Joe McCarthy, and let me say that I am honored when people come up to me on the streets, perhaps I don't deserve this honor, and say, "You're the man who killed Joe McCarthy." Because I happened to appear on the first day of the book burning hearing, and I did my best to conduct myself in the manner which I am conducting myself today. If there were any such evidence against me under any law, the proper authorities could move against me. This body is improperly constituted. It is a kangaroo court. It does not have my respect. It has my utmost contempt, and I am not going to answer that question, sir.
Do you have present information respecting the operation of the criminal conspiracy dedicated to the overthrow of this government by force and violence, which criminal conspiracy is represented on American soil in part by that entity known as the Communist Party?
My answer is no, sir. And no matter how many ways you answer that question, it will remain the same.
All right, so do you have present information respecting the activities of the Communist Party in Northern California?
Would you kindly define what you mean by present information, sir? You mean, do I read books or newspapers? I read
Do
books
you
and
know
newspapers.
from personal experience in closed Communist Party meetings the identification of persons who, to your certain knowledge, are now or in the recent past have been members of the Communist Party active in Northern California?
My answer is no, and if I did, I would not tell you. But my answer is no.
Are you now a member of the Communist
You
Party?
got that answer before.
I asked you whether or not you had ever
You
been a
got
member
that
of the
answer
Communist
before.
Party. Mr. Chairman, I respectfully suggest the witness be ordered and directed to answer the question whether or not he is now a member of the Communist Party.
If you will look at the record of my statement, you will find that that statement covered this question.
Mr. Chairman, I respectfully suggest the witness now be ordered and directed to answer the question whether or not he
Yes.
is now a member of the Communist Party.
This is a specific question on that point that has not technically been asked, and I order you to answer it.
Very fortunate that I have an attorney who seems to think about these things just as I do. I'm very honored. This question is an invasion of my political privacy. I answered it at the outset, and no matter how many tricky forms you take to put it again, you will get that same answer. It has been answered.
Well, does the record reflect a clear direction that you have been directed to answer that question as to whether or not you are now, this instant, a member of the Communist Party?
To indicate that you're declining to answer for the reasons previously indicated. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
That's what I understood you to try
That
to
is correct.
That's all we wanted to know. Thank you, sir. We have no further questions, Mr. Chairman, of this witness.
Witness excused.